All right, let's talk about Andrew Cuomo because I am chomping at the bit, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I got a story too.
Awesome. Uh, Andrew Cuomo, mired in scandal, facing increasing calls to resign because he hid over half of nursing home deaths due to COVID. This story had been percolating for a while, and now it's kind of been brought to the surface because people in his administration were afraid that they were going to go to jail over this. So they spoke out to the media. And some of the people who were surrounding this, who decided not to stay quiet, was Assemblyman Ron Kim. He, as Matt Binder just said, represents Matt Binder's district. And he decided, I'm not going to help Cuomo in this cover-up, decided to speak out, and allegedly, and I totally believe this based on everything I've heard about how insanely horrible of a boss and person Andrew Cuomo is, Cuomo threatened him. Here he is telling his story on cable news, Assemblyman Ron Kim.
Exactly did the governor want you to do? And what did he mean by "are you an honorable man"? What was the thing? Can you recount the phone call and what the point of it was, the request?
Yeah, thank you. I think you had me on the show. And I think what's happening here is when we get closer to the truth behind the growing nursing home scandal in New York, Governor Cuomo tries to implicate you in the cover-up or threatens your livelihood if you don't lie for him. And that's what happened to me in the last 1 week. I was one of 6 lawmakers in that private meeting for 2 hours with Secretary DeRosa when she accidentally told us the truth, that there was a cover-up and fear that the information would be weaponized against Governor Cuomo. That moment, I had to tell the truth, and I had to let the public know what happened. And Governor Cuomo called me the next day at 8 p.m. while I was about to bathe my kids. I was with my wife, and for 10 minutes, he berated me. He yelled at me. He told me that, my career will be over. He's been biting his tongue for months against me. And I had tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, to issue a new statement, essentially asking me to lie, and asking me, I heard and I saw a crime the other day. And he's asking me that I did not see that crime.
And I just want to reiterate, this is not a new thing for Andrew Cuomo, right? All those Cuomo-sexual fucking morons on the internet. This is a bully. This is blue Trump. There's no difference. He's a liar. He changes information and data so he can sell books and make himself rich. He did this with COVID. He wrote a book in October that came out in October, How I Defeated COVID. I wonder how you created that perception that you defeated COVID. It's almost like you lied about how many people died. And it's not even like New York's numbers were good. I mean, right now we're up there with California, and I know it's because we're the two of the most populous states, right? But he didn't do a good job. He ignored Bill de Blasio, who I've got no love for in terms of Black Lives Matter, but he was a better dude than Cuomo, who said we should do shelter in place. Cuomo, of course, bullies him, dismisses him, starts a feud with him in the media, bullies him. That's what he does. He bullies. He tries to intimidate people because he grew up in the family. His father was governor. He was born to do this, right? And so he feels entirely entitled. De Blasio wanted to do a shelter in place, and 5 days later, Cuomo did it, but not before trying to do a scorched earth campaign against de Blasio and then writing his own book about how he was the savior of COVID. I mean, this guy is like a narcissist, and treating him as anything other than that is not right. This guy's Trump, except in the Democratic Party.
Oh, absolutely. I worked with people who were entrenched in working in the New York political world as reporters and journalists, and every single person. I mean, you've probably seen the tweets, but I'm repeating them because it's absolutely true because I've heard it myself. What Ron Kim is saying that Andrew Cuomo did to him on the phone, threaten his career, bully him into trying to take part in this cover-up of COVID deaths, which are at the hands of Cuomo. It's quintessential Cuomo. Literally, it is who he is. It's completely the norm to hear the story about Cuomo to everyone who knows Cuomo best from reporting on him over the years. I mean, this is a guy who has gotten away with so much over the years that he feels empowered to continue doing these things. Like, if you think Trump is bad for this specific type of mafia-esque behavior, Cuomo has perfected it. Like, Trump does it because he's terrible at it, but Cuomo has perfected it. And if you're a fan of his, by cheering him on, you're supporting this type of behavior, because this is who he is at the core of it. Like, there's going to be doubters about what Ron Kim said. And I hope this is a wake-up call to anyone working in, if you're an assemblyman, a state senator, any sort of state, or, I mean, honestly, I feel like everyone should be doing this to be safe in the world we live in now. If you're doing any sort of forward-facing job where you're going to need to provide some statement for whatever it is you do to the public, record your calls. In New York, if you are recording a call you are a part of, it is completely within your right to do it.
Not in
New York, not in California. In California, you need both people on the line to give.
Almost got sued by Taylor Swift for that reason. This is how I know specifically.
Yes. But in New York, if you were taking part in the call, you were considered one of the parties to the call, and New York only needs one party in the call to say, hey, you can record this call, and there you go. Ron Kim would have been that party. So, record your calls from now on. That way the doubters and the haters will know that you're telling the truth. I believe Ron Kim because I know that's the type of person Cuomo is, and you should all know that too.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say to all the young people out there, or maybe youngish millennials, Zoomers, talk to your parents about Andrew Cuomo. It might not be too late. My mom told me that she was watching his debriefings because she found them competent and informative. And then I told her some things. I told her the facts. I talked to my mom about Andrew Cuomo, and now she too knows and understands that he is a corrupt piece of shit. So don't delay. It might not be too late.
It's hilarious. And also, just that was at the time during COVID when we were all so unsure about what was happening. He was at least providing some semblance of like guidance. And then the media wanted to spin that into, this is Cuomo, this is Trump. We hate Trump. And so this is the guy that's doing good. But the reality was that was the only, it was like New York was the hardest hit at the time, so he had the biggest spotlight, and he relished in it. He brought his daughters on. It was bizarre. And the fact that he capitalized on this so quickly, and that's what's really so sick about this and so Trumpian too, is because he hid those COVID deaths and is now, threatening other lawmakers, which, by the way, guys, he's done this before, and he's covered up his own corruption. His top aides have been convicted of corruption and pay-to-play schemes, and he still gets reelected based on name recognition because his father was in some ways beloved by some of the people, older people that live in New York. He still gets a free pass in this area. I mean, it's just, it's the fact that he lied about these nursing home deaths and his participation in basically, shuttling people into nursing homes and increasing the number of deaths, which is, there's still some reporting on that as well. It was all for his book. It was for his book. Think about that.
Right. And Andy, I'm thinking of it, Ron Kim, my assemblyman, he has been on the forefront of this. That's why Cuomo came at him so hard because, I mean, I live not too far from one of the, maybe I shouldn't give it away, but that picture, I live not too far away from some of those nursing homes that Ron Kim has gone to, where, in March and April of last year, I heard the ambulances, I don't even know how often, but something like, it was depressing stuff. And something constant. Like, it was constant, and something like 80 people in those 2 months in just one nursing home in Flushing, Queens, died from COVID because of what went on. 80 people in one nursing home. I mean, it is a tragedy beyond I hate calling it a tragedy because it didn't have to happen. Tragedy sort of makes it sound like it was unavoidable, like a natural disaster. It didn't have to be this way. Cuomo made a mistake here. You know, we could argue about what he knew, and it was early days of the pandemic, fine, but he's now trying to cover it up for his own political benefit. And that needs to be unveiled because it's wrong. And you know, you brought up his book. I swear to you, the way he acts differently pre-book and post-book when it comes to the coronavirus and the rules in place, it is totally him trying to save face for writing that book too early. COVID.
Why are we doing indoor dining? Why are we doing indoor dining in
right? He can't go backwards now. He can't, anything that's in that book now, he can't go backwards because then it's going to admit in some fashion that, wow, I messed up along the way somewhere. And now we've reverted to numbers that were from earlier in the pandemic. He can't, it's totally to save face. I think it was you, Jamie, that pointed it out so succinctly. How interesting that COVID knew Valentine's Day was right around the corner and needed to allow the restaurants to open back up on that exact day.
Yeah, you know, when the scientists were all finished doing their calculations of the first safe day to reopen for indoor dining, they're like, oh, well, would you look at that? It's Valentine's Day.
Let's play that Ron Kim clip just because he kind of, shows off his seriousness in terms of how he took COVID and in contrast to Cuomo.
Yeah, this was in April of last year.
Hey everyone, this is Assemblyman Ron Kim. I'm here at the Sapphire Nursing Home because one of my constituents and her daughter has reached out to me because she's been stuck in this nursing home without any ability to communicate with her. And she's actually, the daughter's here standing with me next to me, and she still can't get in and figure out what's going on with her mother. After we've discovered that there's between 30 to 60 people who might have passed away due to the coronavirus at this nursing home, we still don't have any answers from the state or the nursing director. So we're trying to get to the bottom. There are many families like my constituents here who deserve answers. They deserve to know that their families are being kept safe and they're practicing social distance, they're being tested. These are lives that every second count for these people inside of this nursing home. So we're here demanding answers, and we're not going to stop.
And so Cuomo characterized this as an obsession with him, basically, when Ron Kim was just looking out for his constituents at the early outset of the pandemic and was just purely looking for answers, but that's not allowed. And if the Democratic Party doesn't purge this dude, it's going to be a huge issue. It already was a huge issue. The New York Post in the summer posting article after article about the nursing home deaths. This is going to be talked about in 2022. This is going to be talked about in 2024. Every time we talk about Donald Trump's mishandling of the pandemic, this is going to be brought up. So from a purely electoral perspective, look, the New York State legislature is looking into stripping Cuomo of his emergency powers right now. I think it needs to go beyond that. I think he needs to resign. I think his political career needs to be done. But the force of that ego, he's not going to go willingly. He needs to be forced out.
I would be shocked. I'm so, go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to hold my breath, given what we know about the Democratic Party. I mean, we had Hillary Clinton endorse him over Cynthia Nixon a few years back, despite pretending to be someone who cares about progressive politics and women in office, which we both know is garbage. She only cares about herself. I mean, he's shown that he can win. Like, even though he wins because we have low turnout and people just, they're done. They're done with this shit. Like, why would they expel somebody who can win? Why would they expel someone who's part of the machine and part of the establishment?
He's not just part of the machine. He runs New York. Like, New York has such an entrenched politics system here. I mean, the Queens County Democrats got together and basically this past week and voted on a slate of candidates to endorse. That means they did not give the opportunity to its members to vote on particular candidates. They set up an entire group of candidates, and you could only vote for that slate. So basically, they gave no choice, and they left the press out because it was in a Zoom room, and they said they couldn't let anyone but members into the Zoom room. So it was all done under cover. This city is in the state, but even more so, the New York City is entrenched, and Andrew Cuomo is at the very top of that. And I mean, full disclosure, I should say, Cynthia Nixon, I worked on her campaign against Cuomo, and there was a situation that happened during that campaign that was so disgusting that Cuomo was undoubtedly a part of, because it was some of his closest allies who funded the distribution of flyers that painted Cynthia Nixon as an anti-Semite, even though she herself has 2 young Jewish children. She's raising 2 young. It was the grossest thing ever. It was a quintessential Cuomo play. This is the guy who I don't think it's ever been 100% confirmed, but everyone who's in the know has pretty much all but said, yeah, he was the one behind it. His father's campaign against Mayor Ed Koch back in the day, where apparently the younger Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, set up this slogan for his father: vote for Cuomo, not the homo. So good job. Who is it? Randy Rainbow, who loves the guy, calls himself a Cuomo-sexual, right? This, I would be shocked if anything happens to him, because he basically rules New York politics. It's been there was also another I went up there and covered it back a couple of years ago. There was a Flint-esque water crisis up in New York State in a town called Hoosick Falls that Cuomo went out of his way to try to cover up. This is a long-standing habit of his to do these cover-ups, to engage in mafioso-esque backlash against anyone who talks out against him, ruin people's careers if he wants to, just like that, as if he's here you go for I know people love doing the Sam Cedar Thanos thing, but yeah, that's what Cuomo could do. Put on the glove and like this in New York, make you disappear. This is the guy. So I really hope everyone wakes up to him. I'm not holding my breath, but it's who he is.
Yeah, I did like it when the Nixon campaign turned that slogan on its head and said, vote for the homo, not the Cuomo.
Right. Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
Happier times.